Hello, New Rochelle. Welcome to another edition of What Matters Most. I am in studio this morning at Trinity Elementary School. I have a special guest. Before we get to our special guest, we have some good news. Congratulations to New Rochelle High School senior Mormar Petrovic on being named a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist. There are 16,000 semifinalists nationwide competing for over 7,200 scholarships worth $28 million, and we are so proud of you. This is also National Principals Month, and also the month where we celebrate National Custodian Day. Please join me in thanking our administrators and our facilities department for always keeping our schools spotless. And now for some fun facts. Did you know that Antarctica is the only continent without any reptiles or snakes? And did you know that penguins can jump as high as 9 feet in the air? Wow. Well, that's it for our fun facts, and now I want to welcome our special guest, Congressman Jamal Bowman. Congressman, so wonderful to have you here.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Great to have you back in the school, and
yes.
You know, on behalf of all you've done, National Administrators Month, I want to thank you for all of your service.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
good to be here.
It's great to have you. I wanted to talk about student voice, but before we do that, could you share with our viewers a little bit of your background, because they may not know.
Sure.
You know how uniquely qualified you are to be in school today.
No, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for having me. So prior to running for Congress in 2020, I served as a middle school principal in the Bronx for 10 and a half years. And prior to that, I served in the Department of Education as a elementary school teacher and the high school dean of students. So I had 20 years of service in public schools before running for office and thankfully winning. And yeah, student voice was always central to my approach as a teacher, my approach as a counselor, and my approach as a middle school principal.
Yeah, and so so much today. There's so much about using these programs and that intervention and this kind of technology, but to me, it still boils down to relationships. Do you want to talk about that? And and we spent some time in the high school last year, meeting with students. But talk a little bit about why that's so key and important in our work.
Yeah, relationships are everything, in my opinion. It's our job as educators to make sure we have quality relationships with the kids that we serve, with the teachers that we work with, and with the families that we serve as well. And it's most important for kids because when kids feel seen and heard and valued, that right there bridges the gap between mistrust and trust. And once kids trust you, now they can really blossom and open up and be the tremendous learners and people that they are capable of being. But it always starts with us. I used to tell my staff, it's on us to design learning environments that are great for kids, and obviously building strong relationships are a big part of that.
Yeah, we set the tone,
yeah.
Right? We really do, and climate and culture matter so much. Your visit last year at New Rochelle High School, spent a lot of time, on several occasions talking to students. Do you remember some real important takeaways that were really, I think, illuminating to you? Anything that surprised you? That you heard, that you remember?
Our students, I remember the conversation quite a bit. Generally speaking, they are ready for transformational change. The students were frustrated by sort of the mundane, rudimentary, almost dogmatic consistency of the school day. They felt like they were heard, and this is what they described themselves as: heard, being ushered from class to class to class, and just ushered out the building. Without a real space for student voice, without real opportunities to engage sort of informally in their learning and overall development. And so, they needed and wanted fresh ideas and fresh curriculum and fresh courses and a fresh sort of approach to learning and teaching at the high school level. And many of them even spoke about their K-12 experience and how they noticed that in earlier grades, kids who learned differently or were disengaged didn't really get the attention that they needed as well. So those were two big takeaways for me during those good conversations.
Yeah. And now, and of course, that's not a phenomenon that's relegated to New Rochelle, right? As you're seeing it. And so, since you've been in Congress, what have you been focusing on to try to take advantage of, the experience and to create transformation?
Yeah, what I try to help my colleagues understand is, when we're talking about housing, when we're talking about the economy, when we're talking about, foreign policy, when we're talking about climate, there's a very vulnerable child and family on the other end of that conversation, and our conversation should begin with that vulnerable child and family, and not just about, not just focus on our GDP or our strength as a nation or how wealthy we are. I think we lose sight of the most important aspect of our democracy and most important asset, which are our children and our families. If we're not nurturing them and we're not taking care of them and putting them in a position to thrive, then the country doesn't thrive. So there's a direct connection between education and our government and how our democracy works or doesn't work. So that's what I'm trying to get my colleagues to understand. And personally, I sit on the Ed and Labor Committee.
Yes.
I'm actually vice chair of Ed and Labor, and I also sit on the Science, Space, and Tech Committee. And what I'm trying to also share with my colleagues is we need a new approach to education because the system hasn't really changed since like the 1900s, right? Just since like the agrarian calendar dictated the school year and how it's supposed to function. So what does a 21st century school system look like, in which we're preparing kids for the challenges of the real world, climate change, racism, sexism, classism, inequality? How are we preparing them to tackle those problems, to solve some of the healthcare issues? So we need to do a better job with that, and we're moving slowly in the right direction, which is a good sign.
Yeah, and and I at our most recent school board meeting, in fact, one of our school board members said, I've got a sophomore, so let's hope this transformation, moves along.
That's right. That's right.
We have to approach it with a sense of urgency. Do you feel that when you're talking to your colleagues in Washington?
So I do, and I also feel that I have a major responsibility in leading that transformation because I'm one of the few former educators who are now in Congress and one of the few former middle school principals. And I try to simplify it by just sharing that we are trying to create learning communities that care deeply about kids, and we want to create sort of a platform and a pathway towards lifelong learning and self-discovery. That's the key. This is not just about learning in a school. Life is learning, right? Communities are learning spaces. And so when you simplify it that way, my colleagues get it. And when you get all the politics out of the way, people really get this at a fundamental level. So it's my responsibility to be a leading voice in that urgency, and because of what we all just went through with COVID and many other things, people are more ready for that transformation now than they've been in a very long time.
Right. Yeah, we talk a lot here that we're one New Rochelle.
Yes.
Where children come first.
That's right.
Where we're making decisions, everything we do as a community
based on children
is all based on children, and that's where we're going with it. To me, today, the two biggest issues that we face, in my opinion, are education and democracy, and they're linked. And I just wanted to hear a little bit, why do you think they're so important as well?
Yeah. So, in order for democracy to work, you have to have an educated electorate, an educated citizenry. And when we're not investing in education the way we should be, people are more vulnerable to misinformation, disinformation, half-truths, outright lies, and then democracy suffers on the back end. So this is why you cannot have a democracy without education as one of your central pillars. It has to be. You can't talk about a thriving economy without education. You can't have a thriving healthcare system without education. Even our military, the smarter, more strategic military will win a battle, right? So education is everything, and it's not just education for the sake of training a workforce. Yes, education is connected to certain jobs and careers, absolutely. But in terms of the health and well-being of our democracy, we need every single person in this country to be a lifelong learner and to be highly educated. And again, it's not highly educated based on what degrees you have or what schools you went to or where you graduated from. It's not about that. We want we want our citizenry to love learning and be engaged in learning. And by the way, you know, there have been so many differences, Democrat, Republican, black, white, gay, straight, male, female, whatever, right? All of these divisions and differences. Education brings people together. It helps us to learn about each other. And the more you learn about each other, the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about others, you realize we're very much the same. We're just people.
That's right.
Trying to figure it out. And the more we can come closer together and not be divided and separated and segregated, the more we can work together to make sure our democracy works.
Right.
So education is, to me, I'm biased, but it's the most important pillar of a democracy.
No question. And we were really fortunate. We recently had a world-renowned author visit us and
Nice.
talk about the power of stories and how
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
has a unique story. And when we start to learn and share and really unpack our stories, it's really powerful.
It's very powerful, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're grateful for all you do for us,
Oh,
for our
thanks,
community.
man.
Your leadership, you know, you keep us close. You're always around. You're available. You're accessible, and you know that makes all the difference in the world. So
Of course.
we're grateful. We're happy to have you. Thank you for your leadership. And
Absolutely.
serving the people in our community.
Of course,
All right.
and let's keep it
All
going.
right, we
yes,
will.
sir.
We will. We will. Well, there we go, New Rochelle. So grateful to have Congressman Bowman with us in studio today. And stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you on another edition of What Matters Most. Have a great day, New Rochelle.
Looking